In this lecture, we're going to provide an introduction to the autonomic nervous system. And one unique feature of the autonomic nervous system is the dual innervation nature of this branch of the central nervous system. And there are two branches, and both of these branches or divisions will affect and innervate most effector organs. And the primary function of the autonomic nervous system is to trigger activity that will regulate the organs in order to maintain homeostasis. The two branches of the autonomic nervous system are the parasympathetic and the sympathetic branches, and the activities when these systems are activated are antagonistic to each other. The parasympathetic nervous system can best be summarized as that branch of the autonomic nervous system that regulates organs when the organism is in a state of rest. The sympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, is that branch of the autonomic nervous system that is typically active when the organism is in a heightened state of stress, and that forms the basis of what is often called the fight or flight response. And one example of this is exercise. So when people engage in physical activity or exercise, the sympathetic nervous system becomes activated to a higher degree than the parasympathetic nervous system. This diagram illustrates the different aspects of the two major branches of the autonomic nervous system. And on the left-hand side here we see the branches of the sympathetic nervous system, and on the right-hand side highlighted are the branches of the parasympathetic nervous system. The unique aspect of the sympathetic nervous system, once again, this is the branch that is typically activated to a greater degree during exercise. We see that anatomically the connections of this branch to effector organs arise from the thoracolumbar, or the thoracic spine, and the lumbar areas of the spine. And what is unique about the sympathetic nervous system is what's called the sympathetic chain. And these are clusters of nerve cell bodies and synapses that exist outside the spinal cord. And so the control of a range of organs, that from the eyes to the lungs to the digestive system, will arise from nerves that exit the thoracic vertebrae, as well as L1 and L2 of the lumbar vertebrae. That's lumbar spinal cord level 1 and lumbar spinal cord level 2. And once again here, the sympathetic chain refers to the clusters of cell bodies that exist just outside the spinal cord as the conduit for the sympathetic control of effector organs. The parasympathetic nervous system, neurons and nerves exit the craniosacral levels of the spinal cord. So when we think about the parasympathetic nervous system, that is the major influence on human physiology when the organism is resting, the neurons and the nerves that conduct parasympathetic influence come from nerves exiting the cranial level, or cranial nerves, and the sacral level that we'll discuss in greater detail. The second major aspect of the autonomic nervous system relates to the anatomy of this system. And there are two types of neurons from the central nervous system to the effector organs. The first type are referred to as pre-ganglionic neurons. Pre indicating before, ganglionic indicating that there is a cluster of nerve cell bodies that will conduct information to the effector organs. And there are what are referred to as post ganglionic neurons. And these are neurons that occur after the collection of those nerve cell bodies, and those are located for the sympathetic nervous system in what's called the sympathetic chain. The autonomic ganglia represent those clusters of nerve cell bodies that will communicate between preganglionic and postganglionic neurons, and are often referred to as intrinsic neurons. And so this illustration will highlight the major connections involved with the autonomic nervous system. So on the far left hand side here we see the central nervous system cell body, and the neuron exiting the spinal cord will then become what's part of the peripheral nervous system, and this is known as the preganglionic neuron, and this is the neuron that will connect through the autonomic ganglion, this cluster of nerve cell bodies, that will become the postganglionic neuron. And the postganglionic neuron, when influenced by the preganglionic neuron, will affect tissues such as cardiac muscle tissue of the heart, smooth muscle that lines the cardiovascular system as well, and the digestive system, and various glands that will secrete hormones and other chemicals, and will also influence the metabolism of adipose tissue, or tissue that stores fatty acids. Preganglionic neurons, specifically those of the sympathetic nervous system, exit the thoracolumbar, so the thoracic spine and the lumbar spine, from the lateral horn primarily, and forms what's often referred to as the intermediolateral cell column of the spinal cord. And these are short. They have short axons. These are the preganglionic neurons that originate at various spinal levels, and they are short because they connect to the sympathetic chain, which is located just outside the spinal cord. And these are the other types of neurons are also long postganglionic neurons from the sympathetic chain to the effector organs. And so here we see typically short preganglionic neurons, and these terminate and connect to cell bodies of the postganglionic neurons just outside the spinal cord, but then the postganglionic neuron will connect to other organs that are regulated by these autonomic functions. And so these ones here on the postganglionic side will tend to have longer axons than the preganglionic ones. And this ends our first part of this unit on the autonomic nervous system.